Okay, so yeah, there are several human relationships that we know about. There are professional relationships, there are parent-child relationships, teacher, student, parent-child, lawyer-client, doctor-client, all these kind of relationships. But there's this one relationship that is usually abused, so we emphasize that quite a bit in our reflections in Christian ethics. And our being relational derives from our creation in the image and likeness of God. The Christian God is Trinitarian, so the Christian God is relational. Okay, the Father loves so much that his love generates an entire person. The Father and the Son love each other so much that their love generates the Spirit, so spirates the Spirit. So it's because of our creation in the image and likeness of a relational God that as human beings we are relational. Created as man and created as woman to be relational, to complete each other. Actually, man is incomplete without woman, and woman is incomplete. So when we say that the human person is created in the image and likeness of God, we are saying that the human person is created to love as God loves, because we are God's image bearers. And the person, the human person, is a subject and object of action concurrently. The human person is never just an object. As subjects, persons are characterized by a specific inner self and life. And as objects, persons are entities, persons are somebodies, they are not some things. Remember when we were talking about how to appropriately love, we said we love human beings, we use things, and we adore God. So that's a mindset comes to us when we are dealing with human relationships. The relationship we have with the other cannot be a relationship of a thing to be used. Okay, so as objects, persons are entities, somebodies are not some things. Human beings differ radically from animals insofar as they are persons and therefore have an inner self. Human beings are superior to things, they're superior to animals because they have an interior life. That's why they are to be loved, not used. You see, to use is to employ some object of action as a means to an end. And I say to which means is subordinated. So man's relationship to other creatures is one of use in this sense. Okay? You cannot ever treat as a human person as a means to an end. A person cannot be merely a means to an end for another person, because this is generally precluded from the very nature of being a person. You see, when you say a person, then that is one who cannot be manipulated. Okay? So, now, love as the opposite of using. Remember when we are talking about love of God and love of neighbor as one of the fundamental moral principles? We gave the hierarchy of proper loving. We love human beings, we adore God, but use things. One of the biggest abuses in human relationships is the use of others in the confusion of loving others. So love seeks to find a positive solution to the problem of the proper attitude to have towards a person. Love is possible only if there is a bond of a common good uniting persons. One wishes the good for the other, and the other wishes the good for the other. Now, man's capacity for love largely depends on their willingness to consciously seek the good together with others and to subordinate themselves as an individual, whether he or she, to that good for the sake of others, or to others for the sake of that good. And love is exclusively the portion for human persons. You cannot say you found animals loving each other, or that mother cow loves the calf, or that dog loves its puppies. Love is exclusively, accurately for human persons. Now, in marriage, love is possible only if there is some common good. A man and a woman are united in such a way that they become, in a sense, one flesh, one common subject, as it were, of sexual life. Now, to ensure that they do not become mere means in each other's eyes, because it happens that even within marriage, people can use each other, they can love each other less than they ought to, okay? They must share the same end to ensure that they do not become mere means in each other's eyes. They must share the same end. Such an end where marriage is concerned is procreation, the future generation, a family, and at the same time, the continual ripening of the relationship between these two persons in all of their activity, which conjugal life includes. Okay. Now, we identify this man-woman relationship in view to saying that they are supposed to be of a particular readiness to subordinate each other to that good of love, which humanity, or more precisely, the value of the person represents, regardless of the different sex. In other words, the value of the person is the common good uniting men and women in love. Now, there is a moral problem of using that John Paul II dealt with. And he said that, you see, the second meaning of the verb to use is enjoyment. And this would be to enjoy or experience pleasure. At times, human persons are sources of pleasure and enjoyment. And it is here that sexual morality comes into play. Not only because persons are aware of the purpose of sexual life, but also because they are aware that they are persons. The whole moral problem of using as the antithesis of love is connected to this knowledge of theirs. What makes it immoral for one to use another? It is immoral for one to use another, first, because persons know that they are sexual beings, and two, persons know that they are persons, and that the other is also a person who shouldn't be used. Now, man can make pleasure the aim of their activity. Okay, using the word use in the second sense. One can use another person as a means of obtaining pleasure. And the belief that a human being is a person leads to acceptance of the postulate that enjoyment must be subordinated to love. Enjoyment must be subordinated to love, even in the married relationship. That's when the pleasure derived from the marital act can be consistent with the dictates of love, only if that enjoyment of sexual pleasure is subordinated to love. Okay. Now, who are the utilitarians? Greatest happiness for the greatest majority. Okay. The basic norm of utilitarians is that an action ought to produce the maximum of pleasure for the greatest possible number of people with a minimum of discomfort or pain. And this is supervision. It erects the subjective experience of pleasure into the common good that unites persons. So the understanding that there must be an objective common good as the foundation of true love between persons. Now, the commandment to love is related to the personalistic norm. You remember we said that immorality derives from the fact that we know we are persons and others are persons that are not to be manipulated. So utilitarianism is incompatible with this commandment to love. The person is the kind of good which does not admit of use. The person is good in themselves, but they're not the kind of good to be used and cannot be treated as an object of use. Therefore, cannot be treated as a means to an end. In its positive form, the personalist norm confirms this. The person is a good towards which the only proper and adequate attitude is love. When we were talking about the fundamental moral principles, we did reflect on the love of God and love of neighbors, the fourth fundamental moral principle. And this fundamental moral principle has a key position in this issue of responsible human relationships. Now, love is also a requirement of justice, yet at the same time, it goes beyond justice, since justice is concerned chiefly with things in a relationship to persons. So the word justice usually works well with how we use what is available to us. While love is concerned directly and immediately with persons. Then why did God have to give us this sexual urge? Why is it that we have a sexual urge and that we are so regulated in how to relate with that urge? Now in man, the sexual drive is an urge or an impulse. It is not an instinct. Okay? When we talk about the human person, the sexual drive is an urge. It is an impulse, not an instinct. When you call it an instinct, it will be animalic. An instinct is merely a reflex mode of action, not dependent on conscious thought. You remember when we were talking about the morality of the human act? We said that the 4 ingredients that make a human act moral or that make a human being moral is freedom, meaning we have capacity to deliberate about what we do, then we choose what is good with a good intention and good circumstances. Now, we are saying that the sexual urge, the sexual drive is an urge, it is an impulse, it is not an instinct. If we call it an instinct, we reduce it from being a human act to being an act of man. An act of man is one on which we don't deliberate. Just like you breathe, just like you blink, just like you duck in the event that you're likely to be hit by some moving object, acting in fright, that is an act of man. But we are placing the sexual drive into the category of an urge or an impulse and not an instinct to mean that it is something we deliberate on, that we can regulate by our thought and we can deliberate on. Now, since man is a being who is by nature capable of rising above instinct in their actions and can do so also in the sexual sphere as well as elsewhere, it is far better to speak of the concept of sexual urge other than sexual instinct. With the dogs, you can say it is sexual instinct. When the mating season comes, you know that male dogs can move miles and miles to mate. This so happens. That is instinct. That's not urge. Okay? And we live in a society that seems to convince everyone that what we have is not an urge, it is a sexual instinct over which we have no control. When we speak of the sexual urge in man, we have in mind not an interior source of specific actions, somehow imposed in advance, but a certain orientation, a certain direction in man's life implicit in his or her very nature. Now, the sexual urge in this conception is a natural drive, born in all human beings, a vector of aspiration, along with their whole existence, develops and perfects itself from within. The sexual urge creates, as it were, a base for definite actions, for considered actions, in which man would exercise self-dominion. Now, this property permeating the whole existence of man is a force which manifests itself not only in what happens involuntarily in the human body, the senses and the emotions, but also in that which takes shape with the aid of the will. Yeah. We then also know that the sexual urge is an attribute of the individual. Every human being is a sexual being. And that membership of one of the two sexes means that a person's whole existence has a particular orientation which shows itself in his or her actual internal development. The phenomenon of sexual attraction makes the complementarity of the sexes obvious. Where then do we place this idea of chastity? Now, to understand the place of chastity in response to human relationships, one must understand first and foremost true friendship and the meaning of the human body. Now, true friendship has three attributes. A friend is one who is with whom you enjoy mutual benefit, okay? That you benefit from being friends and they benefit from being friends. But friendship also involves being self-sacrificing. And finally, friendship must be morally enhancing for it to be true friendship. The young people you are engaging with will tell you a friend, but when you look deeply, many of the people they hold as friends are not necessarily morally enhancing. Or some are friends, but they're not self-sacrificing. Or some are friends, but one side is benefiting and the other is not in terms of self-growth and whatever. So yes, you help the young people know who a true friend is. There must be evidence of mutually beneficial relationship, a self-sacrificing relationship, and morally enhancing. Even the marital union must be a union of true friends. Okay? Not people that they are admiring, not people they just lusted over. It must be a relationship of friendship. That's when we can talk of chastity outside marriage and within marriage. Now we need to get into the profound logic of the human body, just that we mentioned about chastity. Most of the stuff I'm going to give you now relates to a very serious discourse by John Paul II, Karol Wojtyła, on what he called the theology of the body, meaning the human body in its nakedness tells us a lot about God. Actually, it is a theology in itself. So reflections on the human body lead us into a profound logic. From the human body to the mystery of sexual difference. From the mystery of sexual difference to the mystery of the Holy Communion in one flesh. Okay? From the human body to the mystery of sexual difference. Male and female, he did what? He created them. From the mystery of male and female, he created them, to the mystery of Holy Communion in one flesh, that a man shall leave his parents and a woman shall leave to his parents, and they cleave to each other and become one. From the mystery of the union in one flesh to the mystery of Christ's Holy Communion with the church. And then after that union of man cleaving to woman, then Christ says he's the spouse of his body, the church. Ephesians. Christ is the head of his body, the church. From the communion of Christ and the church to the eternal communion of Father, Son, and Holy Spirit. That is the logic in which you enter when you take the human body in its maleness and femaleness and place it at the holy level where it should be, and place it at the sacred level where it should be. One of the biggest mistakes we make in our day and time is to treat the human sexual relationship as something to play with. Everyone plays with it. The media plays with it. Young people are encouraged to play with it. People making money off playing with the human sexual relationship. And yet, the Christian thought about the human sexual relationship and the human body in its nakedness is holy stuff. It speaks to us about God. Male and female creates them, but that they marry and become one. And their becoming one tells us a lot about how Christ is one with the church. And because Christ is one with the church, then the church and the people of God are one in the Trinity. That is something people rarely take seriously. But that's how deep the sexual relationship is. Actually, John Paul II made a serious statement. He said, the marital bed is an altar where holy things are happening. He literally equated the marital sexual act to Holy Communion. Since in marriage, we talk of a sacrament in the Catholic terms, we have a sacrament of marriage, matrimony, and we also have the sacrament of the Eucharist. If we believe that what is in the tabernacle is holy stuff, then because marriage is a sacrament, then whatever happens on the marital bed must be holy stuff. And the sacrament is a visible sign that manifests an invisible grace. The visible sign of the naked man and woman married in their marital bed, having sexual relations in their marital setup, tells us a lot about the God whom we don't see. So the deepest meaning of human sexual body leads us step by step into the heart of the mystery of God himself. God the Father, through Christ the Son, and the Holy Spirit teaches us to love as God loves. And God inscribed this vocation to love as he loves in the human body by creating us male and female, and then calling us to become one flesh. Now, Christianity affirms and celebrates the human body. For as a being, at once body and spirit, a man expresses and perceives spiritual realities through physical signs and symbols. Physical bodies, we are and can only experience the spiritual world in and through the physical world, in and through our bodies. Through incarnation, the enfleshing, God humbly meets us here in our human state. You see that some people who say the body is a bad thing, only the spirit is good, things of the world, things of the flesh. Okay, so we end up condemning the body, but Christ could never have chosen to take on human flesh if it was evil, if it was bad. So the human body is good. The human body is sacred. Okay. So some Christians grow up thinking that their bodies, especially their sexuality, as inherent obstacles to spiritual life. That's the point I was making earlier. And many think that Christian teaching considers their spirits good and their bodies bad. But this would be heretical. Actually, in the medieval period, this kind of heresy was called Manichaeanism. So all that God created is good. Christians believe in a God who created the flesh. Christians believe in Word made flesh, the resurrection of the flesh, and the redemption of the flesh. So how then can we say that the human body is bad when it was created by God, that God the Son became man, meaning the Word was made flesh? Those who follow the announcement of the angel Gabriel to Mary, so the Word was made flesh when the announcement was heard. We also believe in the resurrection of the body, resurrection of the flesh, and the life everlasting. So the human body cannot be evil. The human body cannot be bad. Okay. So the human body is therefore a holy sign. It is a sacrament. It is a visible sign that tells us of an invisible grace. The human body is a sign that makes visible the invisible mystery of God. The body, in fact, and only the body is capable of making visible what is invisible, the spiritual and the divine. It has been created to transfer into the visible reality of the world the mystery hidden from eternity in God, and thus to be a sign for that mystery. So the beauty of creation reflects the infinite beauty of the Creator. Yet the crown of creation is man and woman. He blessed them and said to them, "Be fruitful and multiply." The point we are making here, good people, is that the human sexual relationship is holy. We've messed it up. Our cultures, our alleged progressiveness, our perceived progress in terms of development and modernization has served to undermine the human sexual relationship. And in the process, we've undermined what it means to be human persons and to love as God loves. As we draw to the close, I need to point out the twofold functions of the marital or conjugal act. There are two functions. One is unitive, the other is procreative. It is in unitive that you talk about the companionship and whatever, but unitive, they become one, you remember? Cleaving to each other, one in flesh, unis, unum, okay? Latin unum is one. So the marital act or the conjugal act is unitive and procreative. Now there's a logic that derives from here that I'd like you to listen to closely. When you separate the unitive function from the procreative functions, the result is either you get sex without babies or babies without sex. Sex without babies or babies without sex. Hope you understood that. There are many situations in which people are having sexual relations without openness to the getting of babies. And there are many situations in which people are having babies without the necessary conjugal act. So the utilitarian culture then offers sex without consequences after that. And all these are contrary to the original plan for the human sexual relationship. And we have a number of global challenges associated to this gap. You are aware that young children today become sexually mature very early. By around 9, 10, 11, these children are sexually mature, but you know they are not socially mature. They are sexually mature, but we only expect them to take up responsibilities after 18, sometimes 21, or sometimes after 24. So that gap between age 9, 10, when they have developed the secondary statistics, characteristics of sexual, body sexual changes, between there and the age of 2021, those who benefit from undermining the sexual act would then work on sexualizing these young people so that when these young people are not yet socially mature, but sexually mature, their mindsets are prepared to be consumers of sex without taking social responsibility for the sexual activity. What does this mean? That if I am a producer of contraception, and I am a producer of abortion gadgets. I would work on making sure I activate these young people to be sexually active, because if they're sexually active and they still have to go to school, they will have to demand contraception. And when contraception fails, as it always does, they will have to demand abortion. So we make money in the process. And for us to be able to make this kind of money, we must desecrate the sexual union. We must desecrate the marital union. And if I'm to distribute transgender hormones, if I'm to be making money off transgender surgeries, or sustaining relationships between men and women and women, I will have to promote an ideology amongst the young that doesn't tell them to look towards getting married to the other sex when they are mature. You teach the mind of pleasure when you want it. It is in that misunderstanding, in that disregard of the human body, the human personality, and the human sexual relations, that we have this agenda called the sexual and reproductive health and rights. That is the mindset that drives what is going on. Those of you who attended some of the webinars we did earlier in the course with the Family Watch International, you would hear they kept hitting at sexual and reproductive health and rights. They kept hitting at comprehensive sexuality education and the global push for this abortion stuff. So pervasive everywhere. All these are attacks on the human person. They are attacks on the family. They are an attempt to undermine the sacredness of the human sexual relationship. And as I told you earlier, that the human body in its nakedness, male and female created them, followed progressively will lead you straight into the Trinity. So the purveyors of evil discourse undermine this essential value in the human person and the human sexual relationship. That's what I had to say for today. I would be glad to take any questions if you have them. Do we have any questions?
No.
Yes. Yes, go ahead. I see your hand. You're listed as user. I don't know who it is. So just go ahead and say what you have to say.
Okay, thank you, sir. This is Sister Susan.
Yes.
Okay, it's not a question, it's a humble request. If you could share to us your recording, please, so that we are able to access it.
Okay, you don't have the recordings on the platform?
No, for the private last session, I tried to check on it. I did not access it. I don't know with others.
The last session,
But one
Morality of the Human Act.
Yeah, but the one that you shared to us on the platform, I was able to get and download. Yeah.
Okay, I think maybe I forgot to upload it. Okay, I'll put it up.
Okay, please. Thank you.
Have we understood this?
Yes.
Yeah, trying to follow it up.
What does this idea of sex without babies and babies without sex mean? Saturday evening, people are tired.
Mwalimu, can I?
Okay. Yes.
I think, I'm sorry, I'm having a hard time with the connection, but
Yes. Yeah, Bonaventure, you're going to have to type into the chat room. We've not had a single word. Your microphone is showing me that you're talking, but I don't hear you. So type what you have to say into the chat room. I'll read it out to people. Okay. So we'll wait for Bonaventure to type out what he's saying. So he has jumped off them. Okay. Any other issue? Okay.
Lisa, you can elaborate on that, please.
On what?
Sex without babies.
So you said you understood. Sasa kwa nini mimi niliuliza kama mmeelewa, mmesema mmeelewa. So
okay, these babies without sex, I'm thinking of the test tube babies. But this first one, I don't know if it deals with the use of contraceptives to avoid conception. That's what is in my mind.
And we would start from there, actually. You see, if the mindset is to separate the unitive from the procreative function, okay, then the contraceptive mindset, par excellence, is the separator of the unity from the procreative functions. Reason a little bit with me here. If we say, see, after knowing that unitive and procreative, the conjugal act is unitive and procreative, once we say that contraception is okay, we are saying that sexual relations without the possibility of conceiving are okay. Okay? Sexual relations that are closed to conceiving are okay. If sexual relations that are closed to conceiving are okay, then bestiality is okay. Then pedophilia is okay. Then necrophilia is okay. Then homosexuality is okay. Then lesbianism is okay. Then, and the list goes on. You get the point. Remember, we are in a situation of Christian ethics. We are determining what it is that is moral and what it is that is immoral, and what principles shall we follow. Okay? And we are saying that closing the human sexual act to the possibility of giving life is not different from the opening up of this plethora of orientations and other choices. I mean, it is not by accident, for example, that all faith communities, largely many churches, were all agreed by 1933 that contraception is evil. But the Episcopalians opened up in 1933 and said, well, let's just accept contraception within the marital status. Okay? Now, this same church, this was 1933, could not stop itself 70 years later. That's around 2003. They could not stop themselves from ordaining a gay bishop. Because having accepted that contraception is okay, then it should be okay to ordain a man and a man who are in union with each other to the level of the episcopate within the Episcopalian. Okay? So that's the point we are making, that once you separate the unity from the procreative function, then you had better accept sex without babies. It is not by accident that everywhere we have opened the gate for contraception and condoms and everything, lesbianism and homosexual behavior has followed necessarily. This is just a connection, okay? Because it is a mindset that removes the marital conjugal act from its original setup to the flawed, allegedly modernized outlook to what it should be. Yeah. Fair enough? And babies without sex is obvious, okay? The men on the call should know they are irrelevant. Bonaventure has left. I don't know if we have any other man here. But these days, women can go to a lab and choose the blue eyes, the height, and everything, and they ask to be inseminated. And you hope you are aware that Senator Kihika is actually working on this situation of babies without sex through her reproductive health care bill. Yeah, but generally that's where we've gone. And it's not by accident that the faith community has stood up in arms against this bill, because for them it has moral implications. Okay, and she keeps saying that, look here, where is it written? Where is abortion written in the law? Where is this written in the law? And she fails to understand that the faith community, when it is reading the law, it is looking out for the moral and ethical implications of that text. Okay. Sister Susan, your hand is still up. You still have a question?
Oh, no.
Okay, so thank you for listening. Let's meet next week. Hope you are aware that you're going to do online exams.
No, please update us.
Eh?
Give us some updates.
That's what I do.
When?
I want to do online exams. I'm even considering setting for you some mock exam online so that you practice how to do it.
When is that going to take place, Madam?
For sure, this August is going to be exam time. People have to do January, April, and they have to do May to August exams. So there's a possibility that August is going to be a busy month. Yeah. The university was supposed to be surveyed, I don't know, this week or this coming week. When the Minister of Health passes that you can come physically, maybe you will come physical. If it insists that you do them online, then they will be done online. Okay. So tuonane next week.
Asante. Thank you.